Dating apps are weird. I'm not your prototypical video on analyzing dating apps. I'm going to critically analyze my romantic relationships and then provide a critique on dating apps that I used. I'm not going to say how dating apps are overtly beneficial to society or how they're extremely detrimental to human connection. Let's see how I made a goof of myself with a critical lens. It was the beginning of high school. I just got out of elementary school. I wasn't the best at elementary school, very much suffering, and I had a mark on my back to prove a mission to the people who said that I couldn't make it within the goal I had, and that was to go into medicine. With that in mind, I went into high school wanting to prove myself not only academically, but also intellectually. So I was very much passionate on striving to do the best, and going into my first year of high school, I really wanted to prove that. And there I was. The first day of grade 9, I was at my locker, and there was this absolutely beautiful person that was next to me. And that was soon to be my high school crush. Words at the time couldn't explain how beautiful she was. To me, I started to view her as an ideal girlfriend. She was smart. She was excelling in academics. She was very preoccupied with extracurriculars. She knew how to play tons of instruments. She was involved within her community. She was a confident speaker. And she was a bright energy. She was a compassionate person. She was just, in my eyes, perfect. Now, unfortunately, in the first year of high school, I tried to lay my moves, but I was at the time also when any sort of girl next to me was a semi-crush, but this one was different. I really based my own perceptions of a future girlfriend on her. Unfortunately, it did not work at the time. I did get a very long text. However, when it came time to my first few years in university, funny enough, she was part of a group. At the time, I was still feeling something towards her, but it wasn't as intense as it was in high school, but I still had that notion of she is the ideal girlfriend. Now, getting into the group, I didn't have the intention of going into the group just for the sake of group. I really did have the intention of getting to know more about her. Later on within that group, I got to meet tons of other cool people and started to connect with other people. But the main driving factor was definitely her. She was the selling factor. And then we started dating in my second year of university. It was awesome. It felt amazing until it wasn't. I had an intense fear of abandonment. I always felt like I wasn't good for her when I started in the relationship. I will definitely say that is partially my fault because I viewed her as this ideal person that the thought of her became so tremendously emotionally draining to me, to the point where I just viewed her as too perfect for me. And I had an intense feeling of, oh, I'm not as good as her. I'm not as interesting. I don't have a lot going in my life as she does. This sentiment of not feeling good enough for her actually did worsen during the breakup and before. Because there were some jokes made that she would find another boy that was a cute guy at the campus she was studying. Jokes made not only by her, but her parents. That really didn't help. And when I confronted it, it was a bit too late. Also, it didn't help that during the breakup, she told me I had nothing else going in my life but the relationship. That did not help at all. So with this feeling of abandonment also growing, I definitely did decisions based on that just blew what was coming to be the breakup in a very big way and in an immature way. Now, always in a breakup, there's always going to be blame on both sides, depending on the cases as well too. Specifically in the case how it was between us, I do think we just both were immature in how the breakup happened, but I'll specifically say with my end, definitely immature. A heads up, do not break up with someone a week before their birthday or the week of their birthday. There are reasonable moments when you should break up with the person on their birthday or a week before their birthday, especially if there's some very toxic things going on. I will personally say, at least with how it was with that person, I didn't really feel like that breakup was quite necessary, just because I felt very hurt, and it sent a lot of mixed signals even after when she pitched to still stay as friends. or also have friendship with her, especially when I really did feel at the time betrayed, and now it's just hurt. But at the time, I really did feel betrayed of, wow, we spent this much time and we loved each other so much, and this is how we break it off. It's a very harsh thing, and I think someone who does it should be very understanding that the other person can have very bad reaction to it, like how I had. Not only that, I also did go through some traumas just later on within my birthdays. I wasn't looking forward to the week. I quite literally didn't spend my birthday really well. And also the period of time that that breakup happened was especially during exams, which sucked ass because I was writing exams and also having to deal with that. And I also know she had to deal with the same thing. However, it was a little bit self-inflicted because I was broken up with, so I didn't take that well. Also, note to self, never extend the breakup. That was something that I chose to do. Do not do that if you can. Take the no, do take the rejection. And this leads to my massive point that happened. I was scared of rejection. Not only was I scared of abandonment, that led into being scared of rejection. This led to so many hardships with the breakup. I was not ready to break up. Couldn't even accept the breakup. That's why I tried to extend it. That was completely my fault, and that was not a good thing on my end. My emotional intelligence was low. I was in a fight or flight response. I didn't know what to do at the point, and if I could talk to my past self, I wouldn't have listened because I was simply in delirium with this person. I loved her so much, and I felt like the breakup just felt in such an unloving way. Now, this feeling of having a lot of fear with rejection comes up later in the video, especially when using dating apps. And this wasn't the first time that I also had a fear of rejection. Third year of university, coming off of that breakup, it was, I would say, a year, and this amazing, beautiful girl walks through the door of a club event that we have going on. And I notice her. She is a very comforting presence. But there's nothing that really sparked like how it sparked with my ex-girlfriend, because I led to idealizing to this. I was like, you know what? We got to chill. Let's not do that anymore. So I matured from this point of view, at least hopefully. And when I saw her, I didn't think much of it. I thought she was a cool person and I thought we would be friends. I like to ask questions. I like to try to be a comforting person to whoever I meet. Now, soon did I know that she tried to slide in my DMs. She found my Instagram page and then she sent me a few texts. We met up, we talked, and we started to really hit it off with talking. I really enjoyed listening to her talk. She was talking to me. I was opening up to her. I didn't open up this way since my breakup. It was very hard for me to open up to her. But eventually I opened up to her. And I felt chemistry. I felt like there was a connection building up. And she was really much interested to get to know me. Now, I wasn't used to people to ask that deep of a questions. The people who've asked me those questions have always wanted like some sort of a relationship. So that's why I assumed they wanted a relationship as well. I assumed wrong, but also I also wanted a relationship at the same time. But it was because I was getting the signs that I've seen before of, okay, so you're really wanting to get to know me in that way. And that way has always had a connotation to me that people have wanted something to start maybe the beginning phase of a relationship, especially in the way that getting to know everything about my life more and more and spending hours and talking to each other. Quite literally have never done that with any of my friends. I've talked to them for hours and hours about my issues, but I haven't talked to them about, specific personal, very in-depth issues for hours on end without playing some sort of video game or some sort of distracting feature at the end. For never 4 hours. That's like, wow, that's commitment. So the moment came and I wanted to ask, should we start dating then? And to my surprise, it was a no. I'm not going to go into the reasons why I also was confused by that no, because at this point, I'll say it was my fault for continuing. Once you hear the no, do not continue. That's where you go into situationship territory. Now, the situationship started because I did not listen to that no. I heard the no and I was like, you know what? But this person put so much energy. This person probably maybe went through some traumatic experiences with their own relationships. Maybe they can't trust men. Maybe they can't trust certain types of men. Maybe they haven't felt a certain type of way. Maybe they haven't done this. I was going into that whole mindset of, oh, I'm going to be the savior of this person. Oh, I can save this person to have them to be my girlfriend, or, oh, I can help them, go through some sort of journey of themselves. I don't even know. Like, I'm cringing just hearing me talk about this. Why I'm saying it is not to say that I have a right thinking, but rather to say that this was my thinking. And it's important to know that this is my thinking, but also to understand how I view dating apps and also the goals of how I grow later on within my relationship, within myself, and also just my emotional intelligence within dating. Anyway, that's where it started. And then after that, it was just full-blown situationship. I will say there is not only one person's fault at here. I learned later on that, and it was pretty publicly also, that she had all over her social media that a situationship was of common trend in her life, which, respect, if that happens. However, that is a battle I can't fight for someone, but rather that person has to fight for themselves. Me personally, I think situationships are toxic. I think that situationships can lead to a lot of misplaced energy and a lot of hurt emotions, especially to how it was then. Because I remember just hearing the no's and also saying, but there's still a possibility for us to do things that people do in relationships, but we have it under the umbrella of friendship. That confused me a lot. Doing things that are relationship category for me means that there should be a relationship. It should not go under friendship category. I'm just not like that. That's my personal boundary. That's the boundary that I put down, and I crossed it. How that ended was I put a very abrupt stop to the whole thing that happened with the person, because I realized that I was just being immature. And I realized that what I was doing towards that person was unfair and not okay. I took that break to how I decided. It was very abrupt. It was just cutting all talks with her, just really making my space clear. That did not go off well. And I honestly cannot say that it would go off well. That's what I chose to do. I think if you choose to do that, I think you should go with what your gut says, especially if you need the time to think. And especially if the emotions are very high. And for me, the emotions were very high. So I had to take some time to think. I was very stressed. I was in school. It was my last year of university. Shit was hitting the fan. So I did not need another thing like that. And that was just my thing of just putting stop. And the fact that I had I will tell you, so many people just scoop in my life and then tell me that I didn't do the right decision. I'm lucky that I have good friends who validated my experience, but there are people who made me feel like shit about that. And honestly, don't do that. That's the worst thing you could possibly do to someone who's already making a hard decision for someone who they actually had feelings for. So it is very weird. Also, last thing about this, I also want to say that when I then had to break this non-contact with this person because they were in literally the same vicinity as me, and it would have just caused so much drama to just continue that stone cold not talking face. I'm just not built that way. I sat down with them and I said, hey, I just can't be friends with you, just because if I'm friends with you, then I know this friendship will turn into a situationship because I have feelings towards you, and I cannot manage just being friends with you because I know that when we're together, something will happen. It was that type of vibe. I really can't explain. It was just gonna happen. And I knew it was gonna happen because there were times where it would just point to that. And I was like, no, that's my boundary was that. And to be fair, I just didn't want friendship with that person. I was at that point where I was like, you know what? No. This is quite literally what they responded with. So you hate me.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no.
Bro, I cannot. I then continued being friends, not friends out of I wanted to be friends. I just continued being friends, not to cause drama. So two common themes. I also had fear of rejection. So I was like, oh my God, the news of them not wanting to be my girlfriend hurts me because it means something on my character. Oh my God, they won't want to be my girlfriend because of that. But no. They don't want to be my girlfriends because of their own issues. They have their own situationship issues that they go on with their life, and they don't want to be my girlfriend, not because they don't like me. It's they like me, but something else is going on with their life. Completely respect that. Fear of abandonment and also negative association towards rejection. Had that. So it continued from my previous relationship to the situationship. What I also want to say is also that kind of theme of let's stay friends vibe that happened in both, which I thought was really interesting, that I really want to highlight going into also dating apps because it's something that I also saw with dating apps as well. So what was my goals then going into dating apps? Well, I really wanted to work on my emotional intelligence within one, having a crush on someone and maturely saying how I like them and maturely taking rejection. So I wanted to really up my emotional intelligence within just overall general mental health, but also understand how to take rejection and work on that within myself, because it's not a tell on my character, it's a decision that they made, something I cannot control. To explain even why I think goal-oriented, I think that's just how my brain works. The years of universities made me just really love this to-do list, specifically in my science background. I just love making to-do lists, and I think having a goal that I can achieve really makes something just more calming. To the people watching, you do not need a goal while going into dating apps. You can just do dating apps for whatever pleasure you want as well. Just, just cause, wake up and you just, oh, I want to use dating apps. Perfectly fine. You do not need goals. That's simply just with my personality traits and with how I feel. So whatever makes you feel most comfortable, do whatever you feel. Also, something very important going into dating apps that I really wanted to emphasize was boundaries should be respected. Boundaries put by other people or boundaries put by myself, I wanted those to be respected. So when I say no, no means no. I did not want another recap of situationships. I did not want to cause someone else harm, especially someone who I've never met, a complete different stranger. That would be very bad, because the nuance is a friend can get a nuance, but someone online really is coming from a complete different perspective of never knowing you. So I wanted to work on those things within going into dating apps. Also, before I give the spread of dating apps I used, I really do want to say that I was quite anxious going into dating apps, and I wouldn't have went into dating apps if it wasn't for my best friend at the time using dating apps and found actually his ex-girlfriend. So I wouldn't have really gone into dating apps if it wasn't for that, because I saw that they were happy. I saw that he was happy. I saw that things were going well. And I was like, you know what? I've seen some success stories online. Let me give it a try. I was definitely anxious for putting myself online, funny enough. So the dating apps I used were Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, which I'll be explaining later in the video how they work. But to give a quick run through all the other dating apps I used and my quick impression on them: Plenty of Fish Dating. I felt like this is like the Kijiji of dating apps. Very sketch in my opinion. Instinct. I found this app just straight up felt like an online fuck buddy meetup, which made me feel unsafe and uncomfortable. A lot of weird people I met on there too. Yubo. This felt like a corny app game where tons of flashy ads would bombard you. Pure. This is one of those kink-friendly apps, which made me feel a little bit weird. It felt like Tinder, but all the unsafe parts, but in a kinky way. And to me personally, the safety and amount of fake ads I saw made me worried. Honorable mention to the cultural specific dating apps, which lists from Mijante, Kispa. There's tons of different apps like this that are culturally specific, which capitalism trying to cash the check on cultures, specifically on dating. So when you open up Tinder, it's very bright, it's very vibrant, it has pretty easy controls that you get used to, and you get used to the system pretty fast. You swipe left if you don't like someone, you swipe right if you like them. It's pretty easy to get a hang of, and to really get sucked into their algorithm. It really is an addicting algorithm when you start not having time to do other things. You just go on your phone and you start swiping and find other people. A little bit it becomes relaxing to the point where it might become a hobby. Personally, I found myself when I wasn't doing something, I try to, swipe and to see who I'd find. Overall, Tinder is interesting. I will say I met people off Tinder. It was a very interesting experience. I find Tinder's way of monetization to be sketchy, but not quite as Yubo, which Yubo is very, very sketchy. That is just a full-blown cash grab. that is just a full-blown ad in itself. The way Tinder advertises itself is very interesting to me because it promotes finding relationships, but also it's so extremely monetization heavy to the point where you're like, okay, how much money do you want to get off of people finding these quote unquote loving relationships, which people can find loving relationships. I will say the monetization is really what put me back. And I will say the people that I met, I didn't have very bad experience. This is coming from the male perspective. I 100% know that the female perspective goes through a totally different thing. Didn't start any relationships, had some friends that came out at Tinder, which was pretty cool. In Tinder, I thought it was pretty interesting to see the different varieties of short-term or long-term short-term or short-term long-term or just quick fun or new friends, which I thought was very interesting. And I think questions arise when you use short-term relationship and short-term fun. To me, that's where I was interested of where's the difference between short-term fun and also a situationship? Because I know a situationship, someone would want feelings and they go into it and the other one doesn't want to start a relationship. But for short-term fun, you both are consenting that you want to have fun with one another. But what happens if one has feelings for the other person or something? I just thought it was interesting. I don't know how healthy it is relationship-wise. I'm not a relationship therapist. I would definitely think there are some complications to that, and you would have to be super mature and emotionally intelligent to the max to pull that off. I definitely think some sketchy things can come out of that. And also that does ring the bell to how do you keep that safe on this app? Because that doesn't seem safe to me, especially that a lot of people would come at it with a way that, oh, I just want to have sex with someone rather than wanting a relationship. That's scary. Especially just all the scammers or so many things. Like, how do you trust that? Especially the immense amount of like men that are on this app compared to the women that are on this app. Nonetheless, I think you should respect those boundaries that are put on the app that say short-term to long-term, long-term to short-term. Ask about those. Get to know the person. Like, it's nothing hard to get to know them. They might reject you from the get-go if you ask them about that. Happened many times. You don't talk to the person. That's happened to me. People just don't respond. However, it's good to know what those definitions mean, especially if you're a nerd like me. Go into those definitions. What do they mean? I highly recommend also understanding your boundaries and, wanting to know what those mean. A lot of the times when you ask people what the boundaries are, it's just a question to get to know someone better rather than an attackative question. Definitely do that and respect them. I traveled for dating apps. I traveled roughly an hour-ish away from where I live, and I will say, don't do it. Don't travel for dating apps very far away. Why? It's high risk, low reward. And why I say that is because those people are complete strangers. You do not know them. You can text them for 2 weeks in a row and they will still be complete strangers. They are complete strangers. And the reason why you should not go that long is because of this. I did that. I had to cancel. The first week I was talking to the person, I had to cancel because I got COVID. And that was awkward because I canceled the day before and the person didn't seem very happy. I don't know if they did or not. I just had COVID. I really didn't feel good and I didn't want to expose anyone else, especially the people that I was going on the bus with. No. Then I went the next week to where they lived. And that was a whole mess. There was a snowstorm that delayed the bus like 2 hours. They had to wait outside. When I got there, the vibe was completely off to the point where I was just at the end lying and saying, oh, the date was good. I was just trying to get out there, not going to lie. But I did say, you know what, give it another try. Why don't we see what happens next week? Because again, I'm a fear of abandonment, but I also fear giving rejection to other people. Luckily, the person did send me a text the next day saying, I just don't think this works. You're really cool. Yeah. First rejection on Tinder. And funny enough, I had to swallow it. And that was my first taste of rejection through a dating app. Now, to the point where I really didn't know this person compared to the other relationships that I have, I think that's a big difference. The other relationships that I had, I was very emotionally invested. To this, I only knew them for 2 weeks, texting back and forth, never met them. And the first time I met them in person was the first encounter that I ever had with them. And after that, it was a rejection, much different than getting to know someone every single day, talking with them. So keep that in mind. Another experience, I got canceled 2 hours before a date with someone I met on Tinder. That cancellation to the date also was a rejection. Another thing, I didn't really know that person. We were talking back and forth. It was really cool conversations. I was really stoked to get to know them, but I didn't really get to know them first encounter wise. I just got to know them through text. So that rejection was bittersweet. I was like, oh my God, that's never happened to me before. But I was slowly getting to see that Tinder's rejections are really fast. And also they don't sting, I'd say, as the other ones. So there wasn't a lot of attempts for me to grow in that department. Personally, at least saying it. And the third experience I had was saying a joke to someone who left me on red for about 2 weeks each time I sent a message. Seemed like we had a really good conversation going. They were really interesting. And after a joke poking fun at how long messages are, it completely ended. And again, that also was not really testing to how I felt about rejection, because I was the one who got rejected and I didn't feel a certain way. I felt bad, but I also felt confident in the personality I have of like, oh, I'm a joking person. I will poke fun. I am sassy at times. Like, that is someone that I really am not going to change. So I felt confident in the decisions I made, but I felt bad that the person reacted badly. Let's now do an in-depth analysis on Tinder's ideology and everything that goes behind Tinder's thinking. So, Tinder was created to transform dating into a fast-paced, gamified experience. Co-founder Jonathan Badeen designed the swipe to mimic flipping through cards, intentionally making dating feel effortless and addictive. Tinder itself admits it's a location-based real-time dating app that accelerates a social trend and treats dating like a game to fit mobile sensibilities. The core design encourages rapid evaluation, reinforcing surface-level decisions over emotional depth, which is considered to happen through getting to talk to the person, that emotional depth through the messages. Debatable. Tinder's mission prioritizes quick, algorithm-driven matchmaking over fostering meaningful connection. CEO Ely Seidman emphasized facilitating hanging out digitally for Gen Z, likening Tinder to a social bar focused on ease, not depth. Match Group CEO Spencer Raskoff recently stated users don't want more matches, they want better ones, reflecting a push to optimize, not necessarily humanize dating. The ideology is centered around fast, measurable interaction, deprioritizing emotional connection in favor of algorithmic utility. Tinder's business model embeds control and monetization within user interactions. Free tier restrictions, caps on likes, hidden swipes, steer users towards subscriptions or ads deliberately constructed to compel spending. The paywall around Likes You that you get through Tinder Gold and Tinder Premium is a deliberate strategy to extract value through emotional leverage. Dating becomes a commodity where emotional worth and access hinge on payment. Academic and legal critiques expose the app's engineered addictiveness. Tinder is accused of using gamble-like mechanics to manipulate emotional behavior, leading to a lawsuit alleging it turns users into gamblers searching for psychological rewards. Its swipe interface is intentionally circular. Users swipe indefinitely, promoting continuous low-effort engagement. The app is designed for compulsive use, prioritizing user retention over user well-being. Tinder increasingly deploys AI to steer user behavior in transactional ways. New CEO Raskoff aims to integrate AI to pop a prompt, encouraging users to reconsider offensive messages, a behavioral nudge mechanism. The ChatGPT-powered The Game encourages memorizing quips rather than fostering sincere emotional vulnerability, prioritizing optimization over authenticity. Emotional work becomes algorithmically managed, reducing human connection to conversation performance. Without further ado, this wouldn't be a full in-depth analysis if we did not see that in its early years, Tinder's culture reflected systemic inequality and harassment. Co-founders have been implicated in sexual harassment cases. Whitney Wolfe Herd famously left to start Bumble, reflecting a culture lacking feminist awareness. The app's ethos was fundamentally shaped amid power-related ethical controversies, reinforcing non-feminist norms. Hinge is interesting because that's where I met the most matches personally, and their motto, "meant to be deleted," was very funny to me. I will say the thing that I found that also reminds me of Tinder with Hinge, which makes sense, they're owned by the same company, is the monetization. The monetization on that is out of control like Tinder. I think it's less promoted and just embedded in a way that just doesn't seem as flashy as Tinder's, but it's there. Hinge's way of monetization, again, a little bit sketchy, just the tier system they have and also the prioritization of likes and how to uncover blocked conversation that has more than a 2-week limit on it. So you have to uncover that conversation by paying 99 cents. Wild to me, just very weird. So I saw people who were very interested in me, but also stopped talking to me abruptly. People who liked me, and after I started talking to them a bit, they stopped. Ouch. My personality must suck ass then. I also found that people I wanted to start conversations with and get to know more about abruptly also stopped, or just stopped later in time. They just didn't want to talk about themselves. I had one relationship that was actually going to happen in Hinge, but just based on distance, it just didn't pan out. And also, I will say at the time that did come, it came to a shock to me, because at that point, I was just witnessing people who were either really into me, stop talking, not into me, but liked me, stop talking. And there's just so many different people who I was getting matched with who, not to just toot my own horn, but I was just getting desensitized. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then when I saw this girl who was really into me, who wanted to start something, who was from the get-go, I was like, what is going on? I was desensitized completely, and that messed my brain. And honestly, I was emotionally drained at that point, where I was like, you know what? Very long distance, that's a no-no. And also me, trained, I can't do this anymore. I also met someone on Hinge that was an influencer that I thought was really funny, because I was trying to get to know them, but they were really not talkative. I thought their whole brand as a person was really cool. I wanted to get to know more about them. And I just kept talking, asking them questions, and sending message after message after message, to the point where it did seem obsessive. I will say it was intentional, not for obsessive, but just to get to know the person more. And also, I was sending messages because Hinge's limit cuts. So if that person doesn't want to talk to you, they just let that conversation expire. And that is not the right way to have a conversation. If someone does not want to talk to you, or someone responds to you, they're not giving you the energy, so leave them alone. Abandonment issues, rejection issues. I continued talking to them to the point where I'm pretty sure they took how I was talking to them as super obsessed. They said I have limerence, which I thought was very funny, because they were giving me kind of a pep talk of like, I think you have to work on yourself in this sense. But it was also funny because I wasn't also obsessing about them every single day. I was talking to 5 other people. I just found that they were very interesting and I wanted to get to know more. So I would just send more texts. Hence, I was on the app more. So I was just sending more texts, because the matches I was finding, I was like, you know what, this person's really interesting. I want to get to know more. Let's talk more. Let's talk more. Did not go on the right way. It just ended off with a lecture, which I thought, do not lecture people on dating apps. You know, let them stupid. And if they have to work on something emotionally, you are not the one to say it, especially if you're a complete and utter stranger. Do not therapize me when I'm not there for a therapy session. Just personal opinion, don't do it to other people. I don't think it's a good thing. The last situation that happened on Hinge that I thought was really funny, I met a girl who was new to Hinge, who was really cool, who we were talking back and forth for a few weeks. And then I told her a deep, dark secret of mine, that I went to a furry convention. To quote her in her own words, there just isn't a romantic spark between us. This was quite literally after I told her that. A lot of people can be very judgmental on dating apps, but don't take it to heart. And also, maybe it wasn't judgment. Maybe it was something else. Maybe I'm overthinking about it. Hinge's foundational mission is to foster intimate, real-world relationships, not perpetual swiping. On their website, Hinge clearly states, "We want to create a less lonely world by inspiring intimate, in-person connections. Relationships are at the core of everything we do." Its slogan, "Designed to be deleted," speaks volumes about the goal. The app's ultimate success comes when users delete it because they found a meaningful connection. Hinge deliberately rejects the dating as game paradigm to center emotional connection and authenticity. In 2015, Hinge pivoted from swipes to relationship outcomes. CEO Justin McLeod explains that early activity wasn't translating into real relationships, prompting a 2015 reboot focused on genuine connections. Vandy Fair commented on Hinge's relaunch, motivated by the dating apocalypse, choosing to drop swiping in favor of a model fostering real interaction. Hinge actively reshaped its design to counter hookup culture and encourage deeper interactions. Hinge emphasizes co-creation and honest expression. According to President CMO Jackie Jantos, Hinge uses a with, not for, product philosophy, co-creating features with user feedback to build trust and authenticity. Prompts, photos, voice clips, these are choices designed to showcase vulnerability and personality beyond superficial metrics. Hinge's values lie in transparency and emotional honesty, distinguishing itself through more nuanced profile expression. Hinge rejects attractiveness scores and prioritizes compatibility. McLeod denies ELO-style attractiveness rankings. Instead, Hinge builds a personal taste profile based on individual preferences. Features like most compatible, based on the Gale Shapley matching algorithm, and your turn, reminders show an effort towards fostering sustained conversation and real dates. The algorithm is structured to help conversations and real-world interactions, not to exploit user psychology or extend app use indefinitely. Debatable. Hinge is cautious about anthropomorphizing AI in romance. McLeod, speaking recently, warned that AI companions are like emotional junk food and stressed that AI shouldn't replace human connection. The company is exploring AI as a dating coach and profile advisor, not a substitute for real conversations. Why dating coach? Why? AI is viewed as a tool to enhance, not replace, genuine relationships, aligned with Hinge's commitment to authenticity. Hinge backs its ideology with empirical research. Hinge Labs studies what fosters successful connections using the We Met feature to close the feedback loop and refine matching. Hinge leverages data ethically to promote its mission of forming real relationships rather than superficial engagement. To me personally, Bumble was non-existent, quite literally did not get a lot of matches. I don't know if it was because of my area or just because I'm not very popular on Bumble, but I also use their paid services. I will say, did not bring me more interactions. I also found their monetization to be as weird as Hinge and Tinder. I found that personally putting it in Bumble was quite literally like putting money on a wall and watching it. My perspective, but amazing job, Bumble. If you ever want to sponsor me, please don't do. Bumble's signature innovation flips traditional dating norms. Only women can initiate conversation in heterosexual matches, reinforcing female agency and reducing harassment. Bumble claims this. CEO Whitney Wolfe Herd noted this feature aimed to correct dysfunctional abusive norms by putting control into women's hands. Bumble positions itself as a corrective force to patriarchal dating dynamics centering women's empowerment. Bumble embeds kindness and respect as foundational values. The platform partners to ban hate symbols, bans unsolicited lewd images, cyberflashing, and introduced private detector to blur NSFW content. Bumble seeks to deliver a curated, respectful dating environment, far more moderated than its peers. Bumble balances empowerment tools with monetized content. Bumble Boost offers visibility on who liked you, match expiry extension, and match reactivation, $9.99 per month. Additional paid features like super swipes and coins are intended to let users stand out. While enabling female-first interaction, Bumble still monetizes emotional access, blurring feminism with frictions of market mechanics. Bumble's mission extends beyond romance. Bumble BFF and Bumble Biz translate its swiping model to friends and professional networks, empowering women to make first moves in all realms. The app intentionally removes age from biz profiles to combat ageism and normalizes female-led networking. Bumble promotes feminist agency across life contexts, personal, platonic, and professional. Newer design iterations reflect deeper user care. In response to fatigue, Bumble now trialed features allowing men to initiate conversation or women to offer opening questions. New CEO Lydian Jones emphasized giving women more choice, not just one rule overrides all. Bumble's evolving model indicates genuine responsiveness to female users' experience, not rigid doctrine. Bumble's activism complements its app design. Bumble supports policy causes like cyber flashing laws, domestic violence hotlines, and reproductive rights. Bumble launches funding initiatives like Bumble Fund for women-led startups and Believe Women campaigns. So I wouldn't say my experience on dating apps was necessarily all that bad. I really do think that dating apps do reflect a lot of the trends that we have within our current dating culture. It just really uses that accessibility to its nature. I think the core of dating apps, finding a safe space to cultivate some sort of connection within another person through the online venue, has benefit, and that idea is pretty good. And I hope it advances in an ethical and equitable way that it can provide safety to people and also feel that the algorithm doesn't choose them based on some sort of ELO or ranking system or popularity system, but rather in a system where it's fair. And this might be my optimism talking or my overly whimsical attitude, but I really do think that dating apps' idea at a core really does stem from wanting a connection. Now, the people who making those apps, I can't vouch for, but what I'm perceiving as it in my own perspective is that. So I really do think there's something, and I'm glad that I used them because I did learn other people. I made other friends. I learned how to deal with my emotions in a different avenue. I learned how to fend myself off from monetization schemes, especially in regards with dating. My heart was twisted was also how fast the rejections were. I really do want to work on my emotional intelligence within accepting rejections for the person that I care a lot with. And I think that's something that I have to continue working on. That dating apps didn't give me that nuanced approach, but dating apps did give me a quick rejection. It's just that nuanced approach dating apps didn't have. And I think that's something that I have to continue working on. I think giving rejections to other people was something that I could work on, but in a surface value, not in that nuanced way that I also can receive rejections from a person I really care about. And I really can say that dating apps, it's hard to create an environment to have that loving connection with the person, especially it's sometimes luck, it's sometimes maybe it's just meant to be. It's very hard. And I just personally did not have that in dating apps. Would I download them again? No. I personally would want to focus on things that bring me passion just because I believe that through the passionate things, I'll find a person that will be as passionate as I am with the things I love, especially since I am a pretty big nerd. And just being passionate, I feel like will bring other people that are passionate that I can learn more from and want to grow beside. But you never know. You never know. I say no now, but you don't know. You'll see me on my Instagram story posting that, oh my God, my months of not using dating apps are over. I found this study online of Pew Research that took different statistics from the United States, which I think is beneficial to know that this isn't talking about how good it is, but rather an analysis on the statistics from this one study. And specifically, this one study only saw between heterosexual partners and also LGBT users. So 51% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual US adults have used a dating site or app compared to 28% of straight adults. LGBT users report more positive experiences, 61%, say their experience was very or somewhat positive versus 53% among straight users. A larger share of LGBT users are currently active on these platforms. Their use is more ongoing, not just one time. So let's go through successful matches and relationships through analyzing different statistics. Overall, 10% of partnered American adults met their current significant other online. Among those under 30, the figure rises to 20%. However, among partner LGBT adults, 24% met their partner online, more than double the straight average. Historically, dating culture has centered on heterosexual encounters. LGBT users often face limited offline options, making online platforms essential for connection. LGBT users not only use apps more, but also match more successfully due to historically inaccessible dating pools and greater need for tailored platforms. Heterosexual users still use apps widely, but benefit less in terms of lasting relationships, partly because their offline options are broader. Both demographics report safety issues and unwanted behaviors, but LGBT users encounter higher rates of explicit harassment, though still overall report more positive outcomes. The idea of dating apps have a lot of potential, and I want to give an analogy to illustrate this. Now, imagine you're playing video games a lot, and with these video games, you meet someone within these avenues, but it's a very monetized heavy video games. Let's use a video game called Destiny 2. And you put a lot of money in this video game, like a lot of microtransactions that you know is coercive in nature, and you're playing this game a lot and it's addictive, but it means a lot to you because you put all these hours. You don't want to spend this much money, but you're kind of hooked, and you don't like the company, but you're going with it and you play it. So you continue playing it and you meet someone, and through those missions, you feel passionate of going through goals and doing other things, and you meet that person online and you keep talking with them and you do missions together and you learn more about them, and then a relationship starts to blossom without getting to know them, and then you meet up and you want to get to know them. Now, possibilities vary. They might be a meanie, they might be a stinker. They might be a thinker. What I'm trying to prove with this analogy is that at the end of the day, some people want to form connections within an accessible app. But I will say there is a need for some people, even if they know that the monetization is bad, that they want to meet someone in an accessible way that dating apps are providing. So I think focusing on that with the dating app aspect, I say to all the apps I talk about, focus on less monetization, creating a safe space, a genuinely safe space without having people feel like they're going to be abducted. And also focus on crafting genuine connections, because there are people who want to use your app and who want to use your app in a way that they don't feel like they have to pay a lot of money to get the best outcome. There's something valuable in, while technology is advancing, also understanding how to advance this technology ethically. Because if we're just going to be against it and critiquing it, but not be hands-on with how to make it ethical, it's going to go forward, but it's going to go forward problematically. So we need to be involved. To any execs that are from Bumble, Tinder, Hinge, or any of the apps I named, or any dating apps in general, please stir away from the direction that you are going with monetization and AI. Do not teach AI how to be this dating coach to people, how to pick up girls faster or how to pick up guys faster. No, this really is shady to me, because that just creates insensitivity, especially within emotions, in my opinion, that you're teaching someone a go-to line to pick up a girl, or you're teaching a go-to line of, oh, you really like this color? Tell me more about yourself. But you're saying that with the motivation of picking up the girl or sleeping with the girl or getting something out of that person. Why not enjoy the interaction, especially if your app also promotes just people who want to have friends? That AI is very sketchy in the way that it is going to teach people on how to form them to get a goal that they want out of people. There are not goals out of social interactions sometimes. You just have social interactions just to have them. And AI needs to understand that if you are going to do proposed models, I don't even know how you would even do that, but I would stir away from that direction. Do not teach AI people how to be the biggest flirts just so that they can sleep with others, because some people just don't know how to react in relationships, and they will use anything if they are desperate. And if this AI model is used out of desperation through people who want to learn how to flirt better, to get a girlfriend because they're lonely, that is so coercive. No. To reel it back in about the points that I made earlier about my ex-relationship and the situationship of the sentiment of staying friends after a breakup, coming from a person who also does the same thing when giving rejection, pitching friendship for the sake of maturity or not having the other person take the news super badly, this was something I saw also happening within dating apps. The times when rejection was given, but then right after we could stay friends, or for the sake of maturity, we can stay friends. I want to highlight this point because I think it's necessary to not stay friends with someone just for the sake of maturity, but for the sake of feeling comfortable. I don't think you should stay friends with someone if you don't feel comfortable, if you just want to strive for this idea of maturity. If this idea of maturity doesn't fit well with you, you should not continue this. Why I say that is because it's happened multiple times to me where I've seen someone pitch friendship and we've drifted off as friends, or that friendship didn't feel quite real to me. It didn't have a communication on both sides, but rather it was a decision made for this idea of maturity. It always came back to maturity when friendship was pitched of like, oh, you handled the breakup so well, let's be friends. This is maturity. But sometimes breakups aren't meant to be handled well. There's a long road to maturity, and that goes through a lot of ups and downs. And maturity comes through a long process, and it shouldn't be dictated on only staying friends with someone, but you can stop being friends with someone. It's your journey, and however you get there, I think it matters. If I could summarize this whole video in a phrase, I would say don't judge the people using dating apps, but rather critically analyze dating app companies. I think dating varies from person to person. It could be very hectic, it could be very calm, varying different types of emotions. But at the end of the day, what we have to realize is that the process of dating is very mundane. Now, Everybody can have their own perspective on how dating goes, but the process of dating is long. And what I mean by long is not staying with an individual person, but think of dating as the whole journey that you have with your life. You're single, then you have someone, then you might break up with them, then you might find someone else, then you might find someone else, then you might find someone another person. You might have not found your one. Your one may have left you. You might not have a one, but that doesn't mean that it's the end of you. And what I mean by dating is mundane is because I think a lot of the times we see online these glamorous dating lifestyles, or on the internet seeing these glamorous posts on dating, and we start to forget that beauty is in the mundane, in the slow paced, in the alone time that we have with one another, and the time that we can discover ourselves. I really never got the phrase, you really need to understand yourself before you start dating, or you need to take some time off before you start dating another person. And I think what that means is find something that defines you. And that something doesn't have to be another person. You can find something that defines you as a passion, something you love, because you are so much more than a romantic relationship. Love can be something that goes into multiple different activities. So don't let the idea of dating dictate who you are, but rather find yourself. Find what brings you joy. See something that you're passionate in. You are so much more than a relationship with a person. I 100% believe that anybody has something out there that will bring them love. Dating apps shouldn't be considered a solution, but rather a checkpoint to this long journey that we call life. Romance and relationships don't dictate who you are, because the special thing about dating you is your creative, unique, passionate self. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. If you want to try dating apps, go ahead. If you don't want to try dating apps, go ahead. But at the end of the day, have fun.